Well, it's been a while. I took a break after Clash of Kings. Read Project Hail Mary and read quite a few Louis L'Amour books and the Ralph Compton book. And and I've been working on a sequel to my Western novel. But I finally, officially begun A Storm of Swords, the third book in A Song of Ice and Fire. And right away, George R.R. Martin does something pretty fascinating. Because he opens not with kings, not with battles, though there is a battle going on, but we've already seen it. Uh, not with politics in King's Landing, but with fear. Pure fear. And the prologue, which I've only read the prologue in chapter one, those two, but the prologue might be honestly one of the best openings in the series so far. A lot of people have been telling me that Storm of Swords is where it really gets good, and I can, if the prologue is in indication, I can really see why. But it's not the best because of action, but because of what it says about courage, cowardice, and evil. And then immediately afterward, in chapter one, we get Jaime Lannister. I think the first Jaime chapter that we've seen. We've obviously seen Jaime, but this is the first chapter that's actually named Jaime. But he's not the arrogant golden knight from the first two books. He's still insufferable, but he's a man emerging in the sunlight after darkness. But whether he's truly changed is going to be another matter. In scripture, it says that the evil hates the light, so it's going to be interesting what his reaction is going to be. Uh, and what stunned me is that the imagery Martin uses in the first chapter, the Jaime chapter, feels almost medieval romance like. Almost something that you would see in Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, except twisted and inverted in a way. Not fully corrupted, but inverted. And I think that inversion is exactly what this book is beginning to explore, at least from the little I've read of it so far. But getting back to the prologue just for a moment, the prologue opens with a character I don't think we've seen him before. I didn't remember him, but Chet, um, and several others, but he seems to be the main one. Uh, Planning murder, and it's not heroic murder, not vengeance or justice, but to me it was kind of petty murder. He he hates Samuel specifically because Samuel took his job that of helping his position helping Maester Aemon, and it specifically says because Samuel could read, which kind of made me think of the the thing C.S. Lewis said in The Four Loves about how often like a lowbrow family may be have a reaction uh like that when one member show signs of becoming intellectual, like a hatred for things high. It's almost darkly comic at first in the way it's put in the prologue, but the deeper we go into Chet's mind, the uglier it becomes. He's bitter, cowardly, cruel, and self pitying. And what struck me most is that Chet thinks of himself as someone the world has wronged, which feels deeply important. In C.S. Lewis, evil is often portrayed not as grand villainy, but as the slow shrinking of the soul into resentment. And Lewis writes about this constantly, but especially so in The Great Divorce. Uh, because the damned souls in that book are often pathetic more than monstrous. They're tiny, defensive, consumed with grievance. And that, at least in this prologue, seems to be Chet. He isn't brave enough to be openly evil. He's secretly evil. And then there comes the third horn blast. Because one blast means Rangers are returning. And he's about to kill Samwell, and then he hears the blast, which means Rangers returning, and it may be John returning. So his plan of killing Samwell is he has to abandon it then. But then there's another blast. Two means wildlings. But then when Sam finally is awake, suddenly there's a third blast. Three. Which hasn't been heard in, I think it said hundreds of thousands of years. Like three means others. And suddenly all Chet's petty bitterness collapses before real terror. The ending to the prologue is just incredible. Chet made a sound that was half a laugh and half a sob. That's not merely fear, that's the soul realizing it was playing games while standing at the edge of ruin. And then Martin gives a humiliating detail. His small clothes were wet, and he felt the hot stream running down his leg. Lewis would have understood this perfectly, because Lewis believed courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what's right despite fear. And Chet is paralyzed at the end of the prologue. He can't do that. The true test of character comes when the shadow falls upon them. And Chet fails instantly. He's paralyzed. But what fascinates me structurally is this. A Clash of Kings often felt dominated by politics. But the Storm of Swords opens by reminding us that none of that is the real danger. The others are. And suddenly all the throne games feel small and petty. And that feels very Tolkien. Especially the way the myth slowly re-enters the story after people have stopped believing in it. In The Lord of the Rings, the world slowly realizes the ancient evils weren't dead after all. And that's exactly the feeling here. 3 horn blasts have not sounded for thousands of years. that tiny detail, maybe not tiny, but that detail matters because civilization forgets. Men always assume the ancient darkness is gone forever. It's ancient, it's part of the past. But then one night, the third horn sounds again. Then we move to Jaime, the Jaime chapter, and the opening paragraph absolutely grabbed me. I gotta read this. An east wind blew through his tangled hair, as soft and fragrant as Circe's fingers. He could hear birds singing and feel the river moving beneath the boat as the sweep of the oars sent them toward the pale pink dawn. After so long in darkness, the world was so sweet that Jaime Lannister felt dizzy. I am alive and drunk on sunlight. A laugh burst from his lips, sudden as a quail flushed from cover. That first sentence just immediately feels symbolic. Because in medieval literature, as well as in Tolkien and Lewis, the west wind is extremely important. I didn't misspeak. The west wind is extremely important, and is usually associated with grace, peace, and the divine. Lewis says in the essay The Weight of Glory, we do not want merely to see beauty, though. We do not want merely to see beauty, though God knows even that is bounty enough. We want something else, which can hardly be put into words. To be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to receive it into ourselves, to bathe in it, to become part of it. That is why we have peopled air and earth and water with gods and goddesses and nymphs and elves. That though we cannot, yet these projections can enjoy in themselves that beauty, grace, and power of which nature is the image. That is why the poets tell us such lovely falsehoods. They talk as if the west wind could really sweep into a human soul, but it can't. They tell us that beauty born of murmuring sound will pass into a human face, but it won't, or not yet. For if we take the imagery of Scripture seriously, if we believe that God will one day give us the morning star and cause us to put on the splendor of the sun, then we may surmise that both the ancient myths and the modern poetry, so false as history, may be very near the truth as prophecy. At present, we're on the outside of the world, the wrong side of the door. We discern the freshness and purity of morning, but they do not make us fresh and pure. We cannot mingle with the splendors we see. But all the leaves of the New Testament are rustling with the rumor that it will not always be so. Someday, God willing, we shall get in. So the west wind is incredibly important in medieval literature and especially in poetry. And then in Tolkien, we have Valinor, the other west, the blessed realm. Westward imagery often carries a sense of paradise or spiritual fulfillment. But Martin gives Jaime an east wind, and yet it feels beautiful, soft, fragrant, alive. And of course, the east is the sunrise. It's uh, the beginning of some new journey that that Jaime is setting out on. But it's just the beginning. Jaime isn't at the end. He isn't at the West Wind yet. There's a whole, like, where he is going to end up is still up in the air. It feels beautiful as Genesis. So much potential in the phrase, "in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth." So much potential. But what follows after that? What follows after that? It's only the beginning. Is there going to be possible redemption or not? Jaime says, "I am alive and drunk on sunlight." That's astonishing language for Jaime Lannister. It doesn't seem to be the cynical Kingslayer that we've been seeing. It feels almost like resurrection imagery. After darkness, light. And of course, in Genesis 1-2, there's darkness upon the face of the deep. And then God said, "Let there be light." But still, it's just the beginning. The world itself, like, after Jaime's imprisonment, the world itself feels holy again. And yet Martin subtly complicates it. Because this isn't a pure spiritual awakening. Jaime's still Jaime. He hasn't come to the end of the road, his road yet. He's still sarcastic, still arrogant, still morally compromised. And we see that in the way he treats Brienne. So in some ways, the imagery becomes deeply ironic. He experiences grace, but doesn't yet know what to do with it. That also feels incredibly Lewisian again. Lewis often writes about people being surprised by joy before they understand truth. Lewis himself said his imagination was baptized when he first read Phantastes by George MacDonald, and the rest of them took a little longer. This seems to be a similar experience for Jaime. Whether the rest of him is going to be redeemed, going to be spiritually baptized, is another matter. Jaime just feels like that here. Not redeemed, but awakened, and there's the possibility of it. The dynamic between Jaime and Brienne in this first chapter is just very well done. Because Brienne still believes in chivalry. Not superficially, but in actuality. And Jaime constantly mocks her for it. When Brienne says no true knight would condone such wanton butchery, Jaime responds, true knights see worse every time they ride to war. That exchange is basically the moral thesis of the series, at least from the first two books, at least from what I've read. Brienne believes in ideals. Jaime believes ideals are lies. And Martin refuses to make the answer simple. Jaime isn't entirely wrong, because knights do terrible things. Honor often collapses under pressure. But Brienne's sincerity exposes something inside Jaime. He laughs at ideals because he once believed in them too. And that's what makes him so tragic. And honestly, this dynamic reminds me a little of Tolkien's contrast between Boromir and Faramir. Though Boromir, his road, he ultimately found redemption. The jury's still out on Jaime. But with Boromir and Faramir, one was corrupted by realism and power. The other still oriented toward honor. Martin just makes it a whole lot messier, though. And then the ending of the first chapter is it's small but deeply important, I think, because Jaime has every reason to abandon Brienne, and he thinks for a moment that he's going to get away from her. He insults her constantly. He mocks her appearance. He calls her a wench every other sentence, it seems like. And yet, when she dives into the river, he doesn't knock her out with the oar. He instinctively uses the oar to reach out to save her. Not because of honor or because of duty. He instinctively does it. And the way that he does that, I think, just matters so much. Because afterward, he immediately hides the moment behind sarcasm. He says, "You're a bloody stupid wench." That's just so psychologically real for Jaime. Because Jaime cannot yet allow himself sincerity. But the action, right now at least, matters more than the words. His action, to use the phrase, his actions are speaking louder than his words. And Brienne says, I swore an oath. She is dead set on bringing him to King's Landing safely. And she means it entirely and completely. And Jaime is genuinely shocked by that. Because he lives in a world where vows are always compromised. He even considers compromising his own vow that he made to Catelyn because it was made under extreme duress. He mentions that in this very chapter. But Brienne may be the first truly incorruptible person he's met in years. So far, A Storm of Swords already feels different. It's more mythic than Clash of Kings, but it's also darker and colder. But also strangely more spiritual. The others are returning. Ancient fears are becoming real again. And at the same time, Jaime Lannister, a man that I never expected to sympathize with, is suddenly becoming perhaps one of the most psychologically interesting characters in the series. If this opening is any indication, this book may end up being something much larger than political fantasy. It may be about what survives when the darkness finally comes. So, my question for you, it mainly has to do with the prologue. You can leave a comment, but it has to do with that third horn blast. Chet hears the third horn blast and collapses in terror. Do you think courage is something people have, or something that's only revealed when they truly experience fear? I'd be interested to know what you think. But anyway, I'll see you uh, in the next section that I read. I'll see y'all later. It's good so far.